Welcome, bienvenidos, benvindu, to the Soccermetrics Copa Libertadores show, part of the SDH network, the only English language show devoted to South America's premier club competition. I'm your host, Howard Hamilton, the founder of Soccermetrics. After a thrilling week and a half that concluded the World Cup qualifiers around the world, the club competitions retake center stage. This is the sharp end of the season throughout South America, as all of the domestic leagues are in playoff mode or the final weeks of the league season. The Continental Club finals are approaching their climax as well. The Copa Sudamericana final this weekend, and the Copa Libertadores final in 9 days' time. In this episode, I'll take a step back from next week's final to tell you about the race for next year's Libertadores. Who is in? Who has a chance? I'll tell you all about it across all 10 of the CONMEBOL countries. But first, we start as always with news from around the Copa Libertadores. And the first news item is whether the Libertadores final will eventually move away from South America. More sports leagues have been evaluating in-season matches outside their country. You have heard proposals from Serie A. La Liga got very far ahead in terms of considering and actually carrying out in-season matches outside their country before UEFA and FIFA intervened. Now, the North American sports leagues have actually followed through with playing in-season matches outside the country. All 4 of the major North American sports leagues in recent years have played regular season matches outside their territorial zones. In a recent article in The Athletic, Juan Emilio Roa, commercial director for CONMEBOL, was quoted as having a proposal to study playing the Libertadores final outside of South America. You might remember that in 2018, the Copa Libertadores final was played in Madrid, Spain. That was out of necessity after the second leg match involving River Plate and Boca Juniors had to be postponed because of crowd violence surrounding Boca Juniors' bus approaching the Estadio Monumental. And that match was eventually played 10 to 14 days later at Estadio Bernabeu in Madrid, Spain. This premise is different, or this proposal is different, to study whether to intentionally play the Copa Libertadores final outside of South America. And the premise quoted in this article was that by staging the final outside the continent, that the Copa Libertadores will be placed on a global stage and achieve prominence globally. This was part of a long-term plan to raise the global profile of Copa Libertadores. CONMEBOL officials responded to this quote in The Athletic by saying that Roa's statement was in response to an isolated comment, and his statement doesn't reflect the current or near-future plans of the Confederation. In my opinion, the best way for CONMEBOL to raise the global profile of Copa Libertadores is be more sophisticated about the way that they disseminate their league and competition product. Their broadcast contracts are really primitive. They're really behind the times, and they really haven't fully exploited the market potential of this competition. And it's a competition with a rich history, as I've shown in previous episodes. It's a competition that deserves a global profile, and it's a real shame that CONMEBOL isn't looking at ways to develop the commercial profile of Libertadores by expanding and improving upon the global broadcast contracts. The second story is South American finals adding more technology. CONMEBOL announced that assistant referees will have semi-automatic offside detection, and automated goal line technology for the South American club finals. Now, these tools involve the installation of high-speed and high-resolution cameras, in addition to networking and processing equipment. In fact, 10 cameras will be installed to evaluate offside decisions, while 14 cameras will be installed to evaluate goal line decisions. It's for this reason, among others, that this technology will only be deployed in CONMEBOL finals such as Copa Sudamericana, Copa Libertadores, and Recopa Sudamericana. Third news item involves updates on the Libertadores final preparation. This week, CONMEBOL President Alejandro Dominguez met interim Peru President Jose Herry for a meeting in Lima, Peru. At that meeting, Dominguez not only confirmed that the final would happen in Peru, but that the final was always going to happen in Lima. Now, there has been a political crisis in Peru over the last 3 months. The previous president was impeached and removed from office. The new president was installed on October 10, and there has been a state of emergency in the capital as well as the city of Callao, the second largest city in Peru. The status on the Libertadores final preparations are that 80% of the tickets have been sold, this according to Dominguez. 60,000 fans from overseas, or actually from outside the country, are expected to arrive in Peru. And both Flamengo and Palmeiras will arrive in Lima on November 26. The fourth and final news item is that Racing Club were punished for pyrotechnics in their semifinal match versus Flamengo. You might remember the thrilling displays of fan passion and color involving Racing Club's entry onto the field in their semifinal second leg match versus Flamengo. There were fireworks, there were flares, there was a lot of smoke, and it's visually stunning. It's absolutely exciting and evocative, and it was almost certain to draw attention from the local authorities and from CONMEBOL itself. And that's exactly what happened. Abrevide, which is the Agency for the Prevention of Violence in Sport, an agency in Buenos Aires province in Argentina, came down hard on Racing Club, imposing a 3-match closed-door ban on home matches at Racing Stadium. This is an organization that enforces stadium security and fan conduct throughout Buenos Aires province. This ban will be enforced for all of Racing Club's matches in domestic league competition. So their upcoming playoff match in Argentina's Clausura competition will be behind closed doors. And if they advance to later stages of the competition and they're given home matches, those matches will be played behind closed doors as well. Nowhere at this time as to whether CONMEBOL will impose punishments of their own to be enforced in South American competitions. That concludes this section of news from around the Copa Libertadores. And now I'll turn to the main part of this episode. Who is in and who is out of Copa Libertadores 2026? And I'm going to go country by country in alphabetical order. Now, it's worth mentioning that Argentina and Brazil normally have 6 berths each. The other countries have 4. One additional berth will be given to the country of the will be given to the country whose club wins the Copa Libertadores. That will be Brazil this year, once again. So Brazil this year will have 7 berths. Argentina will have 6. And the remaining 8 CONMEBOL representatives will have 4 berths among them. Will have 4 berths each. Now, without further ado, let's go into the countries one by one, starting with Argentina. Argentina with 6 berths. 5 of them have been decided by this point. Platense, who won the Apertura competition, goes into slot 1. They will appear in the group stage. Joining them in the group stage will be the Clausura champion. And that playoff phase is in session right now. It actually kicks off this weekend. In the 3rd slot for Argentina is Independiente Rivadavia of Mendoza. They won the Copa Argentina. This will be their first time ever in South American competition. In slot 4, Rosario Central, who had the best record among non-champion teams in the aggregate league table. Boca Juniors occupying the 5th slot, and Argentinos Juniors occupying slot number 6. They're guaranteed at minimum a berth in the 2nd qualifying phase of next season's Libertadores. Argentinos, Boca Juniors, and Rosario Central are in the Clausura playoffs. And that's going to be important given the matchups in Argentina's Clausura competition. The one round of 16 match that everyone is paying attention to is the encounter between Racing Club and River Plate. That will be effectively a Libertadores eliminator. River Plate had a disappointing finish this season. They finished outside of the top 3 in terms of the non-champion teams in the aggregate table. They're currently in the Copa Sudamericana place, which for a club of the stature of River Plate is a failure. River Plate, both of these teams have to win what I am calling an eliminator. If River Plate loses, they need Boca, Argentinos, or Rosario Central to win the Clausura playoffs. Boca and Argentinos could potentially meet in a quarterfinal round match. Rosario's in the other end of the bracket, and if River advance and Boca or Argentinos get to a quarterfinal, a semifinal encounter between River Plate and Boca Juniors is very possible. An encounter between Argentinos and River Plate is also possible. But River Plate need to either win the Clausura playoffs or have Boca Juniors, Argentinos, or Rosario Central win. Racing Club must win the playoffs or they're out of Libertadores for 2026. Other interesting matchups in the round 16 Argentina involve Rosario Central versus Estudiantes de La Plata. Estudiantes advanced to the quarterfinal rounds this year. They also need to win this playoff competition to have any chance of returning next season. And Vélez Sarsfield versus Argentinos, another must-win tie for Vélez Sarsfield, for the former winners of this competition in 1994. Turning now to Bolivia, the slots haven't been decided, but we know 3 of the 4 names of the teams that will be present in Copa Libertadores next season. The slots for Copa Libertadores go to the champions of Bolivia's División Profesional, the second place team. Both of those teams appear in the group stage. Then a slot for Copa Bolivia winners, and a slot for a top team in Primera, not in the top 2. Now, always ready, the strongest and Bolivar are effectively the top three teams in the Primera División this season. Always Ready, with 58 points, have already clinched a slot in the top three. The strongest, on 55, are practically there, while Bolivar, on 52 points, is just one win away from clinching the top three place. The Copa Bolivia winners are in the Copa Bolivia competitions in the knockout stage, but the dates haven't been set to play those remaining matches. I believe they're in the quarterfinal stage, and that competition is not scheduled to end until late in December. Brazil is the country with 7 slots, and almost all of the slots for next season's Libertadores come through regular season performance in the Brasileirão. So you're almost always guaranteed to see the 7 strongest teams in Brazil in Copa Libertadores competition. The current state of the Brasileirão, with 4 matches to play, is Flamengo on 71 points, and Flamengo have 21 wins. And that's important because the number of wins is the first tiebreaker in Brazil. Palmeiras second on 69 points and 21 wins. Cruzeiro third, 65 points and 18 wins. Mirassol, 60 points and 16 wins. Botafogo, 55 points and 15 wins. Fluminense, 54 points and 16 wins. And Bahia, 53 points and 15 wins. Now, Brazil do get that extra slot for reserved for the champions of Libertadores. And we know that will be either Palmeiras or Flamengo. Both of those teams have also clinched a top 4 finish. So either way you look at it, both of these sides will be back in next season's competition in the group stage. Really interesting story involves Mirassol, a club that was just promoted into Brazil's top flight for the very first time. And in their first season, they're guaranteed a top 7 finish, and they will appear in next season's Copa Libertadores for the first time. They will be joined by Cruzeiro, who also clinched a top 7 finish. Now, the other remaining slot from Brazil goes to the Copa do Brasil winner. That competition is in the semifinal stage, involving Fluminense, Vasco da Gama, Cruzeiro, and Corinthians. That competition won't be decided until after the conclusion of the Brasileirão in late December. Turning now to Chile, with 3 matches to play, the top teams in the Premier are these. Coquimbo Unido are champions of Chile. Thrilling first time triumph in Chile's Primera División, and one that was totally unexpected. Coquimbo Unido on 68 points, Universidad Católica on 51, O'Higgins on 50, and then followed by Universidad de Chile on 48, Palestino on 45, Audax Italiano on 43, and Colo-Colo on 41. So as I mentioned, Coquimbo Unido have the first slot in Chile as champions of that league's Primera División. They will enter Copa Libertadores in the group stage. The second place team in Primera will also join Coquimbo in the group stage. Right now, that is Universidad Católica, and only O'Higgins and Universidad de Chile can catch them. The third place team in Chile's Primera will advance to the second round of the preliminary stage. That is currently O'Higgins. Fourth team in Chile will be the Copa Chile winner between Huachipato and Deportivos Limache. Turning now to Colombia. Colombia uses the season aggregate in addition to the winners of Apertura Clausura to decide their Libertadores slots. Each short season has 3 stages. There's a regular season that involves a single round robin. The top 8 teams from the regular season advance to a semifinal round in which there are 2 groups of 4 playing a double round robin, and then a 2-legged final. Points in the first 2 stages of each short season go into the aggregate table. And in this aggregate table, Independiente Medellin have 87 points, Deportivos Tolima have 85, Atlético Nacional 80, Independiente Santa Fe also on 80, and América de Cali on 77. The Primera competition in Colombia is currently in the playoff stage in the Clausura. Atlético Nacional Junior, Independiente Medellin, and América de Cali in Group A, Deportivos Tolima, Atlético Bucaramanga, Fortaleza, and Santa Fe in Group B. With one match concluded in the playoffs, there's still a long way to go. But we do know that Santa Fe will be in next season's competition as champions of Apertura. They will be joined by the champions of the Clausura, and the remaining 2 slots will be occupied by the 2 best teams in the aggregate table who aren't league champions. Turning now to Ecuador. Ecuador's Liga Pro is in the championship phase. The top 6 teams are grouped with each other. They play a double round robin to decide the championship, Libertadores places, and Copa Sudamericana places. With 5 or 6 matches to play, Independiente del Valle have 73 points. Liga de Quito, who were a semifinalist in Copa Libertadores this season, have 61, and Barcelona of Guayaquil have 61. Independiente del Valle have already confirmed their place in the Libertadores next season as winners of the initial stage in Ecuador's Liga Pro. If they win this championship hexagonal, they will be Serie A champions and occupy slot 1. Then the next slots are for the Serie A champion or Serie A best team not in the top 2, and the Copa Ecuador winners. And that will be between either Universidad Católica, Cuenca Juniors, Emelec, Liga de Quito, or Deportivo Cuenca. Paraguay is about to wrap up their season. With 2 matches left to play, Cerro Porteño lead by a point over Club Guarani. The winner of this competition will join Libertad in the group stage. And that first slot will be occupied by either the Apertura or Clausura winner with the better record. And right now that stands to be either Cerro Porteño or Guarani. The third slot in Paraguay goes to the best team in Primera, not in the top 2. And that will be either Guarani or Cerro Porteño. The fourth slot will be occupied by Club Segundo de Mayo. They are finalists in the Copa Paraguay, facing General Caballero. But General Caballero has been relegated to the 2nd division in Paraguay. By rule, in CONMEBOL club competitions, relegated clubs are not permitted to play in their continental competitions, so Segundo de Mayo will appear in Copa Libertadores, appearing in that first stage of the preliminary round. In Peru, Universitario have already clinched a league title. They will return to Copa Libertadores in the group stage. They will be joined by the 2nd place team in Liga Uno, and the 3rd and 4th teams will appear in the preliminary rounds. These 3 slots will be occupied by either Alianza Lima, or Sporting Cristal. A playoff will take place among those three teams to decide slots 2, 3, and 4. The third place team in Liga Uno will play Sporting Cristal in a two-legged series on December 2nd and December 6th. The second place team will play the winner of the first tie. Those matches to be played on December 10th and the 14th. In Uruguay, the slots will be occupied by the Primera División champions, the second place team in Primera, Liverpool, and Juventud, the second best team among the teams in the aggregate table. Peñarol won the Copa Uruguay, so they already were assured of a place in next season's competition. And they will be joined by Nacional and Liverpool. Nacional and Peñarol will meet in the final to decide the champions of Uruguay. That's a two-legged series starting on November 23rd and finishing on November 30th. Finally, in Venezuela, the Clausura final between Carabobo and Academia Puerto Cabello on November 23rd will be important for a couple of reasons. The winner of that Clausura final will play Universidad Central, who won the Apertura, to decide the Primera champion of Venezuela. The winner of that match will appear in the group stage. They will occupy slot 1 in Venezuela. Slot 2 is already occupied by Deportivo La Guaira, the best aggregate team in the top flight this season. Furthermore, if Carabobo win the Clausura final, Deportivo Táchira will enter the Libertadores as the second best aggregate team. Carabobo are already guaranteed a slot in next season's Libertadores as the second best aggregate. So Universidad Central will be in next season's competition from Venezuela. Carabobo will be there as well, joined by Deportivo La Guaira, and Deportivo Táchira will be there only if Carabobo win the Clausura competition. So that concludes this run through who will be present in Copa Libertadores in 2026. There's still a long way to go, and we're probably not going to get a clearer idea of who will be in next season's competition until after the Libertadores final on November 29th. Got a question or a comment about this podcast or about the Copa Libertadores? You can send them to my X handle at Soccermetrics. You can also send questions or comments to @SoccerDownHere or to Jason Longshoe. Next week is Championship Week, and I'll be here in the middle of the week to go deep into the preview of the Copa Libertadores final. This has been the Soccermetrics Copa Libertadores show, proudly part of the SDH Network. See you later, hasta luego, and até mais.